What's up guys, welcome back to the channel for another guide. Today we're going more specific and covering a single god. I've had a lot of requests to do individual god guides, so let me know if you like this format and leave any suggestions below. But anyway, today we're talking about one of my favourite assassins, Awilix, Mayan goddess of the moon. For these guides I'll be covering the basic playstyle of the god, abilities and leveling order, items and builds, and finally synergies and some general tips about playing the god. So let's dive right into the basic playstyle of Awilix. So Awilix, being an assassin, will generally be looking to get in, fuck shit up, and get out. Awilix does fill that traditional ability-based assassin playstyle. She'll often blow her cooldowns, delete someone, and then wait for a reset on her abilities to go back in. She can stay in fights a bit longer using her extra range auto attacks for some damage, but it's a bit risky if her abilities are all on cooldown. She has decent mobility and ways to dodge attacks, allowing her to maneuver about the battleground very effectively while dishing out some major damage at the same time. She's generally at her strongest in the early to mid game and will look to snowball early on as her late game teamfight presence is quite a bit weaker than most other assassins. She can absolutely demolish her team in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game though, so don't underestimate her. So now you know how Awilix is supposed to be played, let's move on to her abilities. So starting off with her passive, Initiative. This is a pretty simple one. If Awilix strikes first out of combat, she gains additional physical power for a short duration. This gives a 30% power increase, which makes it pretty useful at all stages of the game. Most of the time you'll be activating this either by jumping on someone with Suku or by using Moonlight Charge to initiate, though she can activate it in other ways. Her first ability, Summon Suku, will allow Awilix to mount her Panther. While mounted, she moves much faster but has reduced stray speed, which makes it harder to dodge stuff. She can then either cancel the ability, which dismounts and doesn't trigger the cooldown, or she can leap a short distance, dealing damage in an area and putting the ability on cooldown while dealing 60 to 280 base damage and 80% physical power scaling. This ability is really useful for mobility for obvious reasons. The 25% increase to movement speed is pretty insane for rotations, chasing or escaping a fight. The penalty to strafe movement does mean that juking and dodging is much more difficult on Suku. Most of the time you just want to run in a fairly straight line and outspeed people since it's hard to dodge abilities on Suku. Jumping in to initiate with this ability can be a nice way to ensure you proc her passive for the power bonus, and if you don't want to jump, cancelling the ability will not trigger the cooldown, meaning you can use it again to chase or escape. This will cost mana each time you mount though, so be careful about that, don't overuse the ability. Her second ability, Feather Step, allows Awilix to flip over the last target she hit within 1.5 seconds. This will root and cripple the enemy, preventing any movement for 0.6 seconds. This ability gains a damage bonus depending on which hit of her basic attack chain she is currently in. Her first attack deals 1 times damage, second is 1.5 times, and if she's in the final swing of a hit chain, she does 2 times the normal damage. This ability deals 40 to 180 base plus 50% physical power scaling and damage, meaning it's capable of up to 360 base with 100% scaling when it gets a 2 times damage bonus. This ability is where Awilix's kit starts to get really spicy. This ability can do some major damage in the early to mid game when used with double damage. And it also gives Awilix 0.6 seconds of immunity frames, aka she's untargetable while she flips the target. This is great for dodging certain abilities like Vulcan's Magma Bomb. Also note that the ability says flip over the last target hit. This applies to her abilities as well as her basic attacks, so you can activate the ability from her 1 or a 3 if you need to. The ability has a range of 30, so it's actually usable from way outside normal melee range and can be used to close the gap in combination with her 3. Speaking of her 3, her third ability, Moonlight Charge, is pretty simple. She commands Suku to rush forward and deals damage to all enemies in a line in front of her for up to 70 units. Any enemies hit from the side or behind are also knocked up. This ability itself doesn't have too much to it, it's a very simple line damage ability that can provide a knockup if it's used in a certain way. It does however interact with her ultimate, so let's cover that now. Awilix's ultimate, Gravity Surge, allows Awilix to pull the nearest enemy god she's facing that is either knocked up or leaping towards her, dealing 200 to 400 base and 80% scaling and damage when they land at her location. Awilix is then bathed in moonlight, giving her 30 to 70% attack speed and 20 to 60 physical power depending on the rank of the ability, and also immunity to roots, slows and knockups for 6 seconds. The ability has a range of 75 units and can also pull targets through walls. This ability is the real flavour of Awilix's kit. It's what makes her incredibly unique from other assassins and allows her a very specific niche against or with certain gods. Any enemy gods that utilise jumps regularly can be shut down hard by this ability, especially gods like Odin that require their leap to do most of their damage or to engage. Also, any allied gods that have reliable knockup abilities such as Sobek, Geb or Hebo can combo really well, allowing Awilix to pull targets into her team from range. Purification beads will however purify the pull effect of the ability, but not the knockup itself of course. You will still gain the other benefits from the ability though, like the attack speed and immunities, even if your target purifies the CC. It's also worth noting that it's sometimes viable to use this ability simply for the steroid effect. If your team needs to quickly burn an objective like a Phoenix or a Gold Fury, then the bonus attack speed and power is pretty insane considering that it lasts 6 seconds. You don't necessarily always have to land the pull for this ability to be effective. Quick note as well, this ability notably can't pull people from banishes like Yanis' Portal or Freya's Banish. It only pulls from knockups. For those interested in gods with knockups for this ability, then here's a list of those. For those who already know or don't care, skip to this time in the video. For Guardians, Bacchus has 1, Cerberus has 1 that's his ultimate, Ganesha has 1, Geb has 2, Kuzenbo has 1 in his ultimate, Sobek has 2, Sylvanas has 1 in his ultimate, Xingqian has 2, one of them being his ultimate. For Warriors, Chak has his ultimate, Kukulkan has his ultimate, Erlang Shen has 1, Hercules has 1, Nike has 1, Sun Wukong has 1, Tia has 1, and Vamana has 1. For Assassins, Mercury has 1, Ratatoska has an ultimate, Susanoo has 2, one of them being his ultimate. For Mages, Hebo has 1, Kukulkan has his ultimate, Poseidon has 2, one being his ultimate, Sol has her ultimate but it is quite hard to pull from, and Vulcan has 1. And for Hunters, Anhur has 1, Apollo has 1, Chiron has 1, Hu Yi has 1, and Jingwei has 1. And finally, let's talk a bit about leveling order for Awilix. Feather Step is going to be a high priority ability for the early game. At level 1 you want to take Feather Step for clear and damage, Moonlight Charge at level 2 for extra damage and poke. Level 3 can either be a second point in Feather Step for a more aggressive option, which is how I like to do it, or you can simply pick up Summon Suku for the extra mobility if you feel you need it. Level 4 you take what you didn't take at level 3, so either rank 2 Feather Step or Summon Suku. At level 5 you want to take Gravity Surge. I don't really see any scenario where you wouldn't want to take this at level 5. Level 6 and 7 are always Feather Step. Level 8 I recommend skipping a point and then taking both Feather Step and Gravity Surge at level 9, otherwise just take Moonlight Charge at rank 2. And from then on, max Moonlight Charge before Suku and take points in Gravity Surge whenever you can. So now we know how her abilities work, let's move on to items and builds for Awilix. In terms of starting builds, assuming you're playing her in jungle, you should be starting with Assassin's Blessing. After that, a tier 1 item and then fill up on potions. The tier 1 item will be a start to an item you want to finish early on. This is usually going to be Mace as it can build into a bunch of different useful items, but it could also be Katana or Boots as well. Then you spend any remaining gold on potions for sustain. In non-conquest, you want to replace the Assassin's Blessing with Mage's Blessing, or just get no blessing at all. Your next item after starting builds will either be Warrior Tabby, or finishing the Mace or Katana into a full item. For Mace, right now you probably want to finish it into Crusher. It gives really useful stats for Awilix, plus the bonus ability damage on the passive is really great since she's a heavy ability user. You could also finish it into Jotun's Wrath for early CDR, but I recommend Crusher right now. And if you got Katana, finish it into Heartseeker. So once you finish that first item and Warrior Tabby, the rest of your build can go in many different directions. Here's some items I think are good pickups on Awilix in general, though make sure to counter build and adjust to the surroundings in the game you're in. First, the Crusher. I've explained this one before. If you didn't get it as a first item, it's a great pickup later on. Same with Jotun's Wrath. The CDR is great and it provides penetration and power, which are both great for Awilix. Brawler's Beatstick is great if they have healing or a lot of lifesteal. Titan's Bane is good at dealing with heavy tank comps if you need it. Transcendence is a good 3rd or 4th item if you're even or ahead. Even if you can't stack it that easily, it still gives a lot of power unstacked as well as some CDR. Heartseeker, as I mentioned, is good early on for damage, penetration and movement speed. Masamune is great as it gives some defense but also movement speed and power for aggression. Stonecutting Sword is not bad either, since Awilix usually auto-attacks twice before using Feather Step, so she gets the passive benefits. Hydral Cement is decent for that extra bit of burst damage and a bit of CDR. Best if you already have some penetration online from other items, as it doesn't give penetration itself. Void Shield is expensive, but provides both offensive and defensive stats in a single item, which can be useful. Magi's Blessing is a good defensive pickup against any hard CC. Also, Spirit Robe or Mantle of Discord provide decent protection against both types of damage as well as useful passives. Wingblade is also useful if slows are giving you a lot of trouble, and also situational defense items against certain gods apply, but I won't list them all here. Alright, I'll talk quickly about relics and then round out the section with a full build example. So for relics, there are 3 common pickups for Awilix in my eyes. First up is Purification Beads. You need these basically every game unless they're incredibly light on CC. Having that cleanse and immunity is too powerful to pass up on an assassin. Then for your other relic, it's either Blink or Aegis. Blink gives you a nice way to engage without using Suku, and Aegis is the go-to defensive choice if they're bursting you down a lot. Okay, here's a full build example for those who just need a quick build to use in a pinch. Warrior Tabby, the Crusher, Jotun's Wrath, Heartseeker, Stonecutting Sword, Mantle of Discord. Of course, you can replace any of these items with the ones I mentioned before for situational means if you need to. Okay, moving on to tips and synergies. So one of Awilix's main combos will be engaging, either with Suku or by other means, using Feather Step, then knocking the enemy up with Moonlight Charge, which then allows you to pull them with Gravity Surge. If they aren't dead by then, finish them off with some auto attacks using the bonus power and attack speed from Gravity Surge. As I briefly mentioned before, she can also combo her 1 and 3 straight into Feather Step as a gap closer, as a finisher, or to dodge abilities quickly. Another combo involves engaging straight with the ultimate. This can be done either by an external knockup or leap, or just by using Moonlight Charge. Then pull them with Gravity Surge, giving you the bonus power and attack speed for the combo, while also putting them in range for auto attacks and Feather Step. You can then continue to CC chain by knocking them up with Moonlight Charge if you didn't engage with it, and if they aren't dead by that point, have Suku to chase them down. As I briefly mentioned before, don't be afraid to use Gravity Surge just for the attack speed and power. In a situation where a knockup isn't possible and you could get a lot of damage in with basic attacks, then go for it. They'll hit 60 damage harder plus 70% faster for 6 seconds, it makes a big difference. Also for objectives, as I mentioned, burning Fire Giant or Gold Fury early or even a tower is certainly doable using Gravity Surge. Another bit of advice is learn Awilix's cooldowns. Even with no CDR, Feather Step is an 8-second cooldown at all ranks, meaning you can really abuse this early on as it's up much more often than most other abilities. On the flip side, Summon Suku is a very long cooldown, so be careful when using it to engage as you might be left without a way out. It's definitely viable sometimes to just run up on someone with Suku, cancel the ability and keep the cooldown for it, and then just go on them rather than jumping in like a madman. A notable change made fairly recently to Awilix is that her ultimate now has 75 range where Moonlight Charge only has 70. This means you're actually alright to go for a pull even at a max range knockup. You could even take a backstep and still be in range, though don't take it too far as you could easily be out of range, which would leave you stood there like a glowing white lemon as the U-Rock cancel that's rain down on you. But anyway, that's it for the guide. Once again, let me know if you like this format and anything I could improve with it. Since this is my first full God guide, I'd like to hear any feedback you guys have. Be sure to share the video around with anyone you think could benefit from it, and subscribe for more videos in the future. That's about it. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, nerds.